everyone, I'm Jen with Hidden River Creative, and today I'm going to be using the Spellbinders 13 Days of Craftoween Day 2 dies to make this little tag. I also made a card in my previous post with a very similar design, so if you would like to check that out, please go back and look at that video. But today we're going to get into a tag. So if you want to see how I made this, stay tuned. So pulling out this day 2 die set again with the raven and the skull. I think this one is going to be one of my favorites. But I am going to also use these little blooms dies from Spellbinders and my big club blooms die set to add in some florals and some greenery to my design. So now I have my waffle flower grip mat out. I've die cut all my little pieces for my skull and my raven, and I'm just going to go in and start ink blending over these. I want kind of a rustic, old feel to it, so I'm going in with my evening gray fresh dye ink first, and I colored in the solid portion of the skull with that, and then I just went lightly over the top portion of the skull with the same ink. And then I'm coming in with Industrial Diamond on that bottom part, and then again, just lightly over the top part of the skull, just to make it look, again, a little aged. And then that's too similar, so I decided to darken up the part that goes underneath so that there's some distinction between the two layers. And then I'm just putting that against my background. You see me pull in that foiled arch piece that was left over from my card the post before this. So that's how I created that. If you want to see that, you're going to have to go back and watch that video. So I'm just continuing to throw some color on here. I pulled out my Earthy Rose Altenew fresh dye ink just to add some warmth to my skull, and I was pretty happy with that. So now on to, nope, just kidding. Got to put a little bit more. Now I'm done. Okay. Pulling back my Industrial Diamond to go over the little top hat for my raven, and then I'm going to color his wings as well. Actually, she ends up being a girl, so I'm going to call her she. So I'm just going over the wings with that Industrial Diamond, and then I'm going to pull in my pure Graphite and go over the top part of the top hat just to create some dimension. And then I will do the same on the leaves, bless, on the wings. And then I'm going to go over the body of my raven with just the pure Graphite and make that as dark as I can. Whenever you're ink blending, you just want to make sure that you don't go directly onto your die cut with your brush to start out, because that can create some harsh lines. So you just want to start off of the die cut first and then come on to the die cut with your brush containing the ink. Here I am using some Frosty pink fresh dye ink, and I didn't really like how that looked, so I'm coming back over that with dusty pink, and that's just kind of a deeper tone, and it looked much better on the little bow tie, so that's what I'm doing. Here for my greenery that I cut out from the Club Blooms and Little Blooms die sets, I just took my blending brush that was already green, and I just used the ink that was already on it. So it was just a mixture of all the greens that I used on my previous card of the same design for this day 2 die set. For these little sprigs at the bottom, I just went over those with, again, the leftover ink that was on my black/gray brush. And here, for these little stems, I'm going over with my brown brush with just the ink that was left over on that. And doing the same here, just using up that extra ink that's on my brown brush so that I don't have to get out an ink pad again and re-ink it up. Then I'm going to come in with Misty Sage for these smaller little leaves here. I'm just going to use a mixture of greens so that there's some, hopefully, differentiation between all of the greenery that I use in my design. Next, I'm taking that black ink blending brush again, and I'm just going over that green stem just to knock that brightness back a little and make it feel a little bit more smoky. Then I'm taking my green opal ink, going over this largest sprig here to make it one of my darker leaf sprays. I don't know why I paused there. I think I was watching Amy R at this point on her Sunday Live, so I just kind of stared at the screen for a little bit. Anyway, coming back in with the industrial diamond to do the same thing, just knocking back the brightness of that green a little bit because I'm looking for like a gothic floral kind of look here, so I'm not trying to have really bright green colors. On my little flowers here, coming in with my Rouge fresh dye ink, I wanted it to be a little peachy. I think I explained in my last video where I got my inspiration. When I pulled out these Day 2 die cuts, I knew that I wanted to do some sort of like a gothic floral look. So I went onto Pinterest and I looked up gothic floral. And one of the photos that came up was a raven sitting on a skull surrounded by dusty pink slash peachy roses. So that was my inspiration for this card. So coming back in with my dusty pink here, I'm just going on the outside of those petals of that flower there. And then in the center, I did some industrial diamond just to make it a little bit gray so that that top floral piece stands out a little bit. And then my center is obviously gray as well. Coming back in with some pink pearl on these tiny little flowers here that are going to go on a little spray of sorts just to add another little floral piece to my design. I almost forgot these, and actually I need a second set, and I didn't realize that right now. I don't know why, because I cut 2 of those little stem pieces, but I'll realize here in a moment. It wouldn't be a Hidden River Creative video without some sort of mistake or mess up. So I'm just zooming in here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm applying a tiny, tiny amount of glue to the end of this little spray here, and I'm adding those tiny little peachy flowers to this. So as I continue to assemble all of my little die cut pieces, I will turn on some music so that you don't have to listen to me stumble through explaining what I'm doing. Okay, now it's time to punch a hole in this because it's a tag after all. So I'm going to use my We Are Memory Keepers eyelet punch tool, and I am going to punch a hole in my tag using the 3/16 hole punch on this side here. And I did not get that in the center, but that's fine. It works out in the end because my raven took up the space anyway. It's fine. It's all fine. We press on. So now I'm just going to start arranging my little pieces here. I'm putting down my large green sprigs first, and I'm just going to start putting a little bit of liquid glue on these. I'm not putting them over the whole piece because I want them to be able to move a little bit freely so that whenever I put them on a gift, they can get snagged on something and rip off. I'm just joking, but that's probably what will happen. Anyway, now I'm just trying to get an idea of where this skull and raven is going to go so that I can place my largest flower in the center without covering up my skull too much. And so I think that's good. So I'm going to take those off and I'm going to glue my skull down where it needs to go so that I can start building this whole arrangement out. So my raven needs to go there. I'm not going to put a lot of dimension on this. I'm going to glue most everything directly down to my tag. The only thing I'm going to pop up is this little pink flower here. And I glued it straight down, but I'm going to come back in a minute and you'll see me put a little foam adhesive piece on the back of it. So I'm just trying to get an idea for where the rest of my little sprigs need to go. I'm going to put these pink flowers kind of coming out on either side of my skull there. And I felt like it needed just a little bit more of something. So I'm going to fiddle around and see if I like these leaves better or the longer one there to the right. And I end up choosing the longer one because I just thought it looked better. So I ended up not using those little 3-leaf sprigs at all. So I'm going to take everything out and start adhering things down. And here's where I come in and put my little foam adhesive piece on. And then I'm just going to press that down and adhere everything in around it. Whenever you're making floral arrangements, greenery arrangements, it's a really great idea to figure out your arrangement first before you start gluing things down, because obviously once you start gluing things down, it's probably too late at that point to go back and change anything. So I always try to make sure I am really good on my floral design before I start making any permanent decisions. So I'm just putting small amounts of glue here. I'm not gluing any of these completely down. I'm just placing small amounts of glue at the base of the flower, a little bit on the sprig, and pressing that down so that I know it's going to stay on this tag. And we are almost done. These little peach flowers here, I'm just going to come give it a little haircut. And then I'm like, wait a second, where's my other one? I don't know. So let's glue this one down and we'll deal with that in a second. Cute. Here's my other one. Give it a little haircut, glue it down. And I ended up really liking this a lot. I love this tag. It's probably going to end up being my favorite tag that I make from this whole set. I'm coming in with, once again, my Trinity Stamps confetti embellishments. These are the champagne and strawberries embellishments. And then I was like, wait a tick, where's my sentiment? So I'm pulling in this happy haunting sentiment from this press plate and die set from Spellbinders. I used the same one on the matching card that I made in my previous video, and I'll have that linked down below. So I'm going to adhere this down with some liquid glue, like so. I'm going to put a little dot over here on the side so that my sentiment doesn't get ripped off my tag. And now it's time for ribbon. No, it's not. I'm bringing in an eyelet. So I decided to reinforce that hole with an eyelet, and I'm going to use the same crocodile tool to press that in. I love this thing. It's so neat. I have so many eyelets and I never use them. There they are. See how many I have? I've had those for years. So I need to make more tags to use them more often. So I grabbed 3 different ribbons that I have on hand. You can see some of those, or most of them, are Stampin' Up! That are probably no longer available because I've had these for, I don't know, 4 years now. Haven't used them up. I really got to get working on using up my stash, you guys. So here's the start. So I'm going to just feed those through my eyelet, and I chose a black, a peachy color, and then kind of a lacy off-white piece there because I thought that coordinated really well with my tag. So I'm going to feed that through. Should have gone with that one first, but we'll improvise and use a tool here. Poke that through, then I'm going to tie it off, and that will complete my tag. Once again, I really think this is going to end up being my favorite tag that I make out of this whole set. So I hope you all have enjoyed it as well. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing to my channel, and stay tuned for more Craftoween tag videos. I plan to make tags with all of the remaining days in this Craftoween advent calendar, so see you soon!